From the way he looks for fouls and sells those calls in the games, to how he accused Fred Hoiberg of being incompetent, there are a lot of reasons why many NBA fans just don't like Jimmy Butler. And here are some of the biggest reasons why. Starting with his playing style. Now, although Butler is one of the best players in the NBA right now, securing win after win for his team, it doesn't automatically make him a fan favorite. Mainly because a lot of fans think that his style of play is unfair and sneaky. That's because, according to NBA fans, he's always looking for fouls that other players will make, and then uses those calls to his benefit and to score better. Now, this isn't exactly against the rules, but this kind of method of playing has always been looked down upon in the NBA community. A lot of people even compare Jimmy to James Harden, without all the shouting during games, of course. But this isn't the only thing people don't like about his way of playing. Another thing that really rubs fans the wrong way is just how aggressive he can get during games. And while a little aggression in his games is what's helped him in his career, he has a tendency to overdo it at times, and it just comes off as him trying way too hard. But fans of his own team don't hate him. It's everyone else who has a problem with him. Why? Well, because no matter how he plays, at least he's getting his team those precious wins. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters to the fans of a team, right? But then again, his way of playing isn't the only thing people have an issue with. His conflicts with teammates and other players get him a lot of hate too. We all know that Jimmy has had his fair share of controversies with other players. And not only from other teams, but players from his own team too. When a player gets into arguments with members of a rival team, fans tend to brush them off and think of them as just team rivalries. But when a player starts creating drama with members of his own team, well, fans don't exactly enjoy that. Unfortunately, Jimmy is guilty of doing that. Just recently, the player was caught on video getting into a heated argument with other members of his team. Jimmy, Udonis Haslem, and Spoelstra were seen in what seemed like a not-so-friendly conversation after their team wasn't performing well in a game against the Warriors. According to some insider sources, the players were fighting over who to blame for how the team did in the second round of the match. For a team that's been doing so well in the league, not only was this a terrible look, but it also got all the players a lot of hate from fans of the sport. Unfortunately, Jimmy was on the harsher end of all this hate, as fans called him out for always starting beef and arguing with teammates. This wasn't the first time he did something like this, which makes it all so much worse. Back in 2018, when he was playing for the T-Wolves, he went to practice only to taunt and make fun of the players on his team, before he called out the management and left. And speaking of Jimmy calling people out, his criticism of Coach Fred Hoiberg is also something that he gets hate for. Criticism is a good thing, right? Well, that's true only if the criticism is constructive and not meant to degrade someone. But Jimmy must have missed out on the constructive part of his criticism when he decided to call out Coach Fred Hoiberg for how he trained the team. After his team lost to the Knicks, he had some pretty harsh things to say about the first-year coach. Butler said that he believed that the players on the team could win and that he truly did believe in them. But that he said he also believed that the issue was in their coaching. According to him, the team wasn't being coached hard enough, and that was actually holding them back. The player added that Fred is a very laid-back kind of coach, and that does work for some teams, but only to a certain point. The six-footer said that when a team isn't performing how they're supposed to, it's the coach's duty to make his team go harder and train better to overcome all that. You've got to do what you're supposed to do, he said. And even after he got slammed for saying all this, he still stood his ground about his dislike for the coach's method. The only thing he really regretted doing was saying everything publicly. But his public coach slander is hardly the only controversy he's gotten himself into. His trade demands caused quite a stir. Now, it's no secret that Jimmy has changed teams a lot in his career. And that's all fine technically, nothing bad. But come on now, any player that goes from one team to the other so easily is kind of hated by fans. NBA fans think that such players are not loyal to their teams and just want to make money. And loyalty to one's team is a big factor if you want to win the NBA fans' hearts. But that's not it. Another big reason for all the hate he gets is how he demands trades. Back in 2018, he demanded to be traded out of the Timberwolves. The team didn't want to trade the player at the time, and this led to a lot of unpleasant negotiations between the player and the team. According to some sources, the player wanted to play for the Knicks, while T-Wolves wanted to keep him on, knowing just how good of a player he was. His trade negotiations caused a lot of controversy in the NBA. And while some fans thought it was valid of him to want out of the team and that it was his right as a player, others hated how he wasn't loyal to his team once again. And then came the whole saga that I mentioned. You know, the one where he went to practice just to start a fight and walked out because his negotiations didn't go as planned. So yeah, he made it really hard for his fans to defend something else the general audience has an issue with: his personality. Even if some people are ready to let his on-court personality slide, it's hard for the fans when that personality remains the same outside of games. It becomes a serious problem. Remember how I said that a lot of fans find the way he plays very aggressively kind of over the top? Well, they think he's just like that when he's not playing too. And when you think about the needless arguments he gets into with people left and right, it's not hard to see why. Even apart from that, people find him very stubborn when it comes to some things. And a player should be flexible because while standing your ground is a good thing, compromising in some situations where it's necessary is what makes for a great player. The way he negotiated his trade out of T-Wolves is just a prime example of how angry he gets when things don't go his way. But hey, whether you love him or hate him, it looks like he couldn't care less. Here's how he feels about getting so much hate. In an interview, he was asked about how he felt about getting so much hate from fans of the sport. And his answer was honestly surprising. "I love it. I love it," Jimmy said. He added that he thinks that people just love to hate on him for no reason sometimes. And no matter what anyone has to say about him, whether it's something nice or just the worst thing ever, he can't help but smile about it. Well, that's a pretty positive way to go about it, no? The player also said that no matter how much anyone hates him, the one thing he thinks everyone should do is respect just how much effort he puts into his games and how well he plays. Do you agree with that? Let me know in the comment section. Anyway, that was all about why fans really hate Jimmy Butler.